You're listening to Unlocking Vulnerability, a podcast produced by Helen, helping you better understand consumer vulnerability. Hello, I'm Helen Pettifer and welcome to Unlocking Vulnerability. In this episode, I'm delighted to welcome my special guest, Alex Rutherford. Alex is the Customer Experience Manager at Wessex Water. He has spent over a decade focused on creating and transforming customer experiences from all parts of the customer experience in the water industry. He's a previous Complaint Handling Gold Award winner, and he was a judge at this year's UK Complaint Handling Awards. And he describes himself as a proud, unconventional customer experience champion, which is fantastic. So, hello, Alex. It's wonderful to have you on my podcast.
Hi there. Thanks for having me. Really looking forward to this.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Do you want to just start by giving us a brief introduction to yourself?
Yeah, I think you covered quite a lot there. Obviously, my background is very much based in the water sector. For me, I feel like it's actually really exciting. You know, the challenge of being that monopoly provider almost has a certain set of other expectations from customers that they come to you with. You don't have the challenges of customers necessarily leaving you, but also you almost have that public duty aspect to you. And I find that to be something that means that you can tap into a lot of pride and the culture, you know, within a water company is very much actually, we're really lucky to have this public duty. I think there's so much to go out there, you know, being that force that forces companies to face up to the customer voice, you know, in lots of disruptive, uncomfortable ways sometimes. That's what I thrive on. I think it's a really exciting place to be. Yeah, exactly. Definitely not beige.
Definitely not beige, no. And of course the customer voice is absolutely paramount, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's what we're here for.
We're obviously still in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, which is bringing new challenges and changes to all of us. So what impacts have you seen both with your customers and your colleagues during this?
Wow, what a big question. So these are unprecedented times, and I lose count of how many times I've heard that word over the last few weeks, but they really are. You know, the other word people keep saying is the new normal. One of the big highlights for me was how quickly we were able to change and move for the right reasons. It wasn't like traditionally, you know, a slow tanker trying to, you know, adapt to this thing that's not in control. Senior leadership team really, really clear and rapid action to help things like call centres move virtually, things like adapting the way our field force worked so they were prepared, you know, so whether that be the shift patterns, so that it helped us make sure if anyone was shielding, it would have less impact, you know, and business as usual could still continue. A lot of that came from really clear, authentic commitment and communication from the senior leaders. But what that also needed was lots of frequent communication. You know, we've all had to embrace this whole digital age that we're in, but this has really forced that issue, you know, having much more frequent, much more informal conversations that has helped to melt some of those traditional silos down. You know, we've never spoken so much together. We've never spoken so much about challenges and issues and being able to support each other as well. I'm super proud of that. What we have had to sort of accept though is this challenge of stopping doing non-essential work. So for us as a water company, you know, we are there as the emergency service. You know, you're stressed, oh my God, something's going on. That still had to continue. Bursts, blockages, that kind of thing. It's super stressful. We are there to help. But on the other side, we've had to stop what would be considered non-essential. And that comes with a whole series of challenges as well, which is around how do you make sure customers really appreciate and understand that perhaps what they think isn't essential, and the challenge that comes with that. The approach we took was, rather than stop them all dead, was actually to still log and listen to them, but to do some triage over video, over phone call with, you know, field colleagues who might be working from home, and also to keep those requests open and give them fortnightly updates on how things were going, so we don't make customers feel like we've forgotten them. And people seem to have appreciated that. A weird side effect that we discovered as this was going on was around some of our field force being out and about tending to essential, you know, urgent work. And we're being approached a lot more by the public who were obviously at home, as we all were, those of us that were working from home, and having lots of queries and questions about the purpose of what they were doing, that kind of thing. So it forced us to really quickly get some better signage, on things like vehicles and PPE, and signage around the work that they were doing as well, just to really sell the fact this was urgent. That seemed to really help. So again, being able to act really quickly in the moment, and spot it and then put a fix in has been really, really helpful. Really just to free up the guys to crack on and fix the urgent things, but spot, the need for it super quickly. So really, really big cross-section of things there. It's the new normal.
Brilliant. And I've loved the conversations that we've had previously where you've talked about the engineers having those face-to-face virtual conversations with the customers sort of from their iPads and that, because then it helps the customer to actually feel connected, doesn't it, with that engineer, and sort of it's still socially distancing but still being of support. So I mean, do you want to sort of explain a little bit more about that?
So COVID's been interesting. It's because we have had some of our field guys be more at home, and obviously the support teams that you might traditionally call a back office team that do, as part of their job, have to triage, to prioritize, book in, that kind of thing. It has forced us to use those steps in the middle smarter during COVID, so that we're really sure that we're only attending the essential work. But it has allowed us to experiment a little bit during this time. For some jobs, let's try a video call and let's see how it goes. Does it help us understand the problem better, but also help us to have a great conversation with the customer, as well as richer conversations with the support teams in the middle with customers as well? Not just to say, oh, well, we're only doing essential work at the moment. Sorry, it's much more about, let's walk this through. Let's see if we can really understand what's going on here, so we're not walking away from people or making them feel like they're on ice. I really, really want to obviously champion the cause to keep, the COVID ways of working going as we go into this next stage. And that's something that we're totally doing internally at the moment, sharing the best practice, what's worked, what hasn't, what should we take forward, of which that video element's totally going to be part of that. It's probably not going to work for every journey, it's a really time consuming thing, but there'll be a sweet spot for a particularly tricky type of query, or something where if we just know one or two extra things, it helps us understand better and respond better to that particular query. But very exciting for a potential second, trial.
Fantastic. I mean, we've seen so much creativity and innovation, haven't we, in businesses on staying in touch and sort of really supporting customers through this. So I really loved hearing that example that you shared there. So obviously I know that you and your team play a really vital role within your organisation on supporting vulnerable customers, and that's how we ended up getting connected, which is fab. What does this involve, and how are you increasing your awareness and knowledge of vulnerability?
It feels like this year, more so than ever, vulnerability has been up there with all the other, big customer topics. I've never known companies talk so much about it. For us, it comes down to really passionate senior leaders that see it as being super important. It comes back to that point that I said at the beginning about us feeling like we have this public, duty of care as a provider. And that's crucial, if you know your customer base and more things about them, actually, you almost have this duty of care to give them the service that they need and want. So that's one part of it. Obviously, being such a heavily regulated sector, there is an element of vulnerability in there too, just like there is in energy, where we are benchmarked with our peers about the services that we offer, the volumes that we have, that kind of thing, which naturally creates interest from leaders, just like things like leakage and water pressure and customer service. So those two things, sit underneath a really great vulnerability strategy, which, is out there in the public domain, and I'm super proud of it. Lots of different elements to it. Something really recent in there, we were mulling over, what do we have? How do we make our customer-facing teams feel more confident about interacting with vulnerability, being able to spot the signs, feel good if they're put into certain situations? So we launched our vulnerability champions recently across the business. So people from across the end-to-end journey being put forward as being that person who might have slightly different training, slightly different knowledge that can help support their little community of colleagues, and potentially be that go-to person. But for me, it really helps to dispel the kind of formality of it. It sounds really formal, doesn't it? Vulnerability expert. It's not at all. It just means you've got a few extra strings on your bow, and you have that confidence inside that you know what to do if somebody on your team isn't quite sure. The thing that's been really interesting is that population have helped shape what training they feel they need. So for us as a policy team, we don't have all the answers. We can recommend some great training that's out there, things that, best practice, like dementia friends, working with people like Mind and that kind of thing. But they've made some really great suggestions that we've been able to test during COVID about things like bereavement training, for example. Not an obvious one, but if you think you're attending to someone's property who's having a problem, and it is a widow and it's the first time they've ever had a problem, having that confidence that that you can spot the signs and you can make sure that customer feels really reassured and really calm, and that how you can help them, is fantastic. So, and there's been other suggestions of topics too that we just wouldn't have thought of. And so over the next months, we'll look to roll those out too. Where it all comes back to, though, is as a monopoly business, it is within our gift to know our customers. And I think customers would assume that we would know them to a certain level as well. Also to know where the people who we want to help already exist. A water company isn't an obvious first bill to pick off the top, right? But we might know the community groups, the places where those types of customers might already exist, certain food banks in certain regions or a certain citizen's advice. And it's about us seeking out the right places across the patch to have a more natural conversation with them. That's a big part of our vulnerability strategy, as well as the tariffs and, the volume, the commitment, to having people on our priority service register and that kind of thing. So if I cut through all the red tape, it's just about us helping those people that need a bit of extra care and attention. And again, culturally, I think that fits really well with us wanting to give that public duty of care, that the ethos internally about us just wanting to do the right thing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I've always been really impressed with all of your strategies and your attitude as well, sort of not you as an individual, but as an organisation of really putting those people who need that extra support sort of at the heart of the organisation. So it's brilliant. So I'm often sort of referring to you when I'm talking to other people. So it's brilliant.
It's not easy, it obviously comes with its challenges. There's lots of, trials and experimentation that come with it too. You have to learn super quickly. And added to that is pressure from, the regulator too, that might change things at the last minute or change its focus as well. So whilst all of those things sound fantastic, it's hard work every day, and things are constantly changing. There's lots of talk at the moment about data sharing, across energy and water, so that people only have to sign up for priority services once. But the red tape involved with that, is really slowing things down. But yes, senior leaders who are super, super authentic and passionate about it will really help.
And I think that's the cornerstone, really, isn't it? To actually really making a vulnerable customer strategy and policy stick and become a culture in the organisation, as if you get the buy-in from the top.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. So thank you for that. So I know we've also spoken in the past about Wessex Water and the GEM culture, so going the extra mile. I personally love this. I just thought it was a fantastic initiative. So can you explain what this is, what it involves, and the benefits you've seen from this programme?
Biggest challenge of all ever is the culture. People will say, no, it's technology, no, it's money. No, it's not. It's the hardest thing to shift is always the culture, because it's not something that you can just throw a tool at, you can throw money at, it's not that easy. So whilst you can give people the tools to do things and everything else, the thing that really affects colleagues is culture. And so what GEM does is it gives people the freedom and the permission and the understanding of what great service looks like for Wessex. When you're interacting with people in person out in the field, what what does really, really great look like? When there's a lot of pressure on us, with our reputation, and our ambition for our reputation, in a very simple way, it describes how should we leave a customer feeling. So whilst Gem might sound a bit cheesy, going the extra mile, underneath there is about, understand, deliver, wow. So, understand really is about treating the person as an individual. What's really going on here? What they're really asking for, cutting through the noise and, really latching on to the one or two things that are super important, then delivering on it and making sure that you add those one or two extra things in that just leave them feeling really great. This is not about hampers. This is not about painting people's sheds. This is not about compensation. This is about a really authentic person helping a person. And when I think about some of the other things that we've done over the last few years, that's what it comes back down to. So when we were at the Complaint Awards last year for the complaint training, it was exactly the same as that. It was about, in your day job, seeing that person as an individual, really listening, using empathy, and then playing that back in the experience you deliver. The thing about Gem is it helps the field force in particular be rewarded for that behaviour too. So it helps us as a business stand a chance of having as many 9s and 10s out of 10s as possible from customers. Great. But it's about us knowing that, customers feel really valued for their experiences. It's something that we train quite frequently and we choose to do it differently. So I know lots of people embrace e-learning and that kind of thing. This is one where people do it in the office, in person. It's a different kind of training. There's lots of different scenarios and it covers the end-to-end journey as well. Just like with the vulnerability experts, as I was saying, people have the confidence when they face different scenarios of a few tips, tools and techniques that they can use just to make it feel less scary, uncertain, formal, and understand actually what's really going on. So it might be things like different customer age groups, different scenarios, what rapport is, that kind of thing, and then unleash it. And we do that quite frequently. And we're in the process of sort of overhauling that now, just so it lines up with our regulatory customer commitments. If you ever want to Google the word CMEX, please do, because that's the water measure of customer service now that we're in 2020. So it is slightly different to the previous ones, much more about the overall feeling that you leave a customer with once the dust has settled. And so we just need to make sure Gem matches that.
Brilliant, fantastic. And I think this year we've really seen the birth of a new phrase, human experience. We've sort of morphed from sort of customer service to customer experience. And I think this year is going to be sort of the real, starting point of that human experience is actually just emotionally connecting with the customer as a human being. COVID-19 has probably seen the real start of this, which I think is really brilliant.
I've never known a period of time where the way organisations were reacting in the moment was capturing the public imagination so quickly. I'm not going to say the examples, but there might be an airline and there might be a pub, right? And that comes with a legacy. I think this time around, people were looking at certain big names and really watching out what people were doing as it was unfolding. We've never really had that experience before. What it comes back down to, though, is authenticity from leaders, commitment, sticking to your guns, not necessarily doing the knee-jerk reaction. It's been really interesting. I think we'll look back on this period. I think, there'll be case studies to come, won't there, about, the good, the bad, the ugly, so acutely aware of it as it was happening.
And I think as well, customers were not only looking at organisations to see how they were treating the customers, I think they were also looking to see how they were treating their staff, because I think that's another real indicator of actually how much that organisation cares.
Absolutely.
Then, putting their staff first to then help the customers.
It absolutely does, and I think that was a big part of the reaction from the public as well for some of those organisations, was the way people had treated their teams. Perhaps because we were all in the same boat. We were all on lockdown, and we were putting ourselves into the same position. What if that was me? I wonder what the effect of that will be with some of the brands moving forwards, about choosing a different one to go with in the future as a result of that. Before there was COVID, there was a lot of talk around ethos, culture, authenticity, but never to this extent where it was so apparent, whether it's ruthless, whether it's, this and that, and really interesting.
Yeah, definitely one to look out for in the future to see how it all unfolds. So thinking about then the current sort of situation that we're in, what ways can organisations better support their vulnerable customers moving forward?
So at the beginning, I said I was unconventional and proud. So let's go with some blunt things, shall we?
Brilliant.
You've got to step out of the shadows, guys. So it is in our gift to know our customers and to know certain things about them, and for you to be able to use your data, your systems, your touch points better to proactively offer these things before customers feel like they need them. You've got to put it out there. I think customers get really frustrated when they find out that you offer something that could have helped them. COVID has really brought this to the fore about payment breaks and, all the different things that we could offer during this period across all customer service companies. And that level of forgiveness gets burnt really quickly. So being proactive about, as an organization, kind of in the moment, say, right, this is going on. We think there's going to be something happening. Let's put something out there now across, whether it's the socials, whether it's messaging on digital or, literature that you're sending out. You've got to be proactive. You've got to step out of the shadows. You can't just bury it, on a web page and assume anyone's going to look at it. That's just not good enough in 2020. It shouldn't be up to customers to go searching for it. The other thing is what I was saying earlier on in the call about seeking out where the people that you're trying to help already are, because it's really hard sometimes for them to approach you as an organization. There's a lot of stigma there, and you might find that you're not making any headway into that. So it's about using data, knowledge, understanding of your patch, and then seeking out opportunities to find them in a more natural place. It could be as strange as a food bank, but that's the right place to have that conversation with them because they're more open, to that level of support. It might also mean striking up different partnerships to the ones you have today because it's 2020 and customers' expectations and needs and interactions change all the time. The thing that I would always fight for is we so often make these things sound so formal to customers. It's a tariff, it's a scheme, it's a cap, all these formal sounding buzzwords come out, don't they? And it's about how do you make it feel like you're helping them rather than it, be a tick box exercise, because customers never see themselves as tick boxes. It's a person that just wants to be treated or helped in a different way. So really thinking about how you can remove the formality from it all. I could talk about this all day and I'm not going to, but there's just a couple of little sound bites there, especially from a vulnerability perspective. Yeah,
no, that's fantastic. Some great sort of ideas and suggestions there. Prior to the recording of this, we were talking about collaboration as well, and that collaboration is going to be key sort of across
Absolutely.
industries as well. So actually not just sticking within your own industry, but actually have conversations outside.
Yeah, you've got to look outside. Time and time again, someone else has had a similar problem and they've had to tackle it, or they're having a similar problem and they're tackling it. I always describe it as, there's always flakes of gold that comes out from the collaboration. Don't limit it to your industry. Don't limit it to your sector. There's people sometimes it's just, I don't feel alone that, this is just a problem, which is reassuring. Sometimes it's, oh, great. Yes, we are doing the right thing. And other times it will be a really similar, relatable challenge that someone's got that you can take back, and that confidence that, oh yeah, right, okay, yes, and what to do next, as well as build up a network of people who you can sound off against, that don't have the sales pitch, always as the next thing that they're going to say, oh, my system can do that. It can do everything that you ask for. No. So yeah, networking's gold. It's something I really treasure, and make a point of doing it not just within water or utilities. There's a lot of other great networks out there.
And it's great that you've been joining my vulnerability discussions as well. It's been some fantastic experience.
That's a really great
practice.
That's a really great example. So whilst we were having some of the breakout conversations, the types of industries that were involved with that were like chalk and cheese, but actually we were all talking about really similar things.
Yeah.
So the quality of the chat is great, and then there's been kind of networks that have followed on from that, when we've shared contact details and stuff afterwards. So really valuable.
Exactly. Yeah, brilliant, fantastic. So really then that sort of covers all the questions I wanted to ask you, which has been a fantastic, discussion. And I love sort of hearing all the things that you're doing and sort of what you've got planned as well. Are there any final thoughts that you'd like to share?
I felt like I really wanted to leave your listeners with something tangible that they could take away that was different. So I'm going to give you a top tip, and it's as easy as A, B, C. Well, actually, it's not A, B, C, it's C, D, E. But go with me on this, right? So just a little mantra for you always to have, because C, D, E equals F. My biggest advice to people is about the way that you deliver your customer experience. The way that you really need to think about it is don't be incidentally good. Be deliberately good. CDE, create deliberate experiences, because the F is it will control how people feel. Create deliberate experiences, it's feel. So yes, that sounds easier than you'd think. You've got to get your journeys under control, get your reporting right. But when you're in control of your experiences, you know that you're good. When you're in control of your experiences, you can see where the problems are. When you're in control of the experience, you can make smarter decisions as a business. It's all about being deliberate, because then you can totally unleash, can't you, after that? Get the basics right, yes. Everybody talks about that time and time again. It's customers' hygiene factor, but be deliberate with it. So once you've mapped it, what are the key moments that will affect how customers feel? How can you optimize it? What's the key endpoint that you want customers to feel? C, D, E equals F.
Oh, I absolutely love that. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, definitely something I'm gonna write out now and put it on my wall so I can see it all the time. So fantastic. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being my guest today, Alex. It's been a pleasure having you join me. So
thank you for asking.
No, you're very welcome. So if the conversation in today's episodes has raised any questions or concerns with you, if you want to find out more about what Wessex Water do in your area, or if you want to join the PSR, Priority Services Register, then please do get in touch with either Alex or myself. Both of our information will be on the episode details. And you can also email me at info@helenpettifer.com. Thank you for listening to this episode of Unlocking Vulnerability. Please take care of yourself and stay safe and well. Remember to subscribe to my podcast and leave a review. You can also follow me on Twitter at @hpettifertrain, and I look forward to you joining me on my next episode.